Here they are aiding these failing banks. And that's not really a good look when confidence is on the line. And we're fighting wars on multiple fronts. A physical war isn't really necessary. With rising inflation, bank failures, and massive layoffs across multiple sectors, the future of the economy remains uncertain. It's no wonder the central banks have been getting prepared by stockpiling gold. At ITM Trading, we have spent over 27 years building a team of seasoned researchers and analysts who can help you prepare for any financial crisis. Our experts are ready to provide you with proven strategies to safeguard your wealth and assets in the event of an economic downturn or currency reset, which is frankly inevitable. Don't wait until it's too late. Schedule your free gold and silver strategy call by clicking on the link in the description below.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Black Swan Capitalist YouTube channel. We welcome back our honored guest, Lynette Zang, and congratulations on your new YouTube channel. Everyone needs to go and subscribe to support her work. Link in the description below. Lynette, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us again. We're always thrilled to talk with you. You see the true nature of the changes in the world, and you see the disconnect between what everyone's being told and what's really going on. So thank you for being here with us today.
I am very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And I am very excited about the channel because I don't have any restraints on me anymore. Can talk about anything I want. It's great.
And we need more of that, unfiltered, because what's happening is more people are lost, it seems, so that guidance is extremely important. It's the truth, especially in today's information war going on in the world. Too much deceit and misguidance. So we
censorship.
All right. So everybody watching, we're going to be discussing with Lynette and Verson the current economic and financial issues in the world, because there is a lot going on and just so much development taking place in the past few months. So we'll touch on that. We wanted to ask you, Lynette, so recently the Fed, the bailout program ended in March. One of them, yeah. So I wanted to get your opinion on that. What is the significance of that for anybody watching out there that doesn't really understand what that means?
Okay, honestly, there are a few parts of this, but I think that the key part of this is about the level of confidence that the public has or does not have in the Federal Reserve. And with that program, when they put it in place, what they actually did was create an arbitrage opportunity for banks where they could borrow at a lower rate and lock in a higher rate and make that difference, which is exactly what they did back in 2008 by starting to pay banks on the reserves that they were then requiring. Of course, those aren't required anymore. So I think a lot of why they allowed this to run out was because of the visualization that here they are aiding these failing banks. And that's not really a good look when confidence is on the line. But, it wasn't, now to take it deeper, because I think that is the primary reason why this program ended, because of that arbitrage and the way that it looked, which was not a good look. Not a good look. The public cannot deal with any more overt bailouts, right? But, additionally, so I think that's the main reason why it ended. But that's only one program. They have so many other programs that are in place that, as much as they talk about quantitative tightening, that is a lie. They may be allowing their balance sheet to run off, but liquidity, or no, I shouldn't say that because liquidity is evaporating, but the Fed positioning these banks and these corporations to make more money and to have access to funding that they need, I mean, that is frankly alive and well. It really hasn't gotten as tight as they want it to appear, like they're doing their job and generating this soft landing or no landing at all. Yeah, I disagree. So yeah, stay tuned for Bank Crisis Part 2 or 3.
Yeah. If
True.
I can make a statement also. So,
Please.
you know, with the FOMC meeting coming this March on the 20th, it's coupled with the termination of this bank bailout program, one of them, right? But this just heightens all the uncertainty that we've been talking about. So to some degree, I think this essentially neuters the central bank, leaving it just with fewer tools at their disposal. Like you said, they had others. So consequently, the aftermath, yeah, this is going to result in what? Tighter banking standards, and it will make it, I guess, to some degree, almost impossible for some people to secure the most basic loans. Wouldn't you agree?
You know, I've been in this industry for 59 years, right? And one of the things that I've discovered over time is that it's really all about perception management more than reality.
Mhm.
And what they need to do and what they've been doing, but not just with this program, but since 2000, is absolutely killing and annihilating the middle class, killing and annihilating the mom and pops,
Right.
and shifting that liquidity. So do I think that it's going to hurt the normal people and the small businesses out there and prevent them from getting loans? I think that was already quite challenging for them. I think it'll make it more challenging for them. So yes, I do agree with you. But then when they bring in the next program or they shift it to another program, don't you notice it's always about the children? So it's always about the small businesses that have been squeezed anyway. It's all about the general public that has been squeezed anyway. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So yes, it's going to have an impact. I'm not convinced that that's not by design, though.
We agree.
Right. Interesting. Well, I just think that's going to lead, it's going to be some sort of catalyst to lead to the credit crisis and even a liquidity crunch. I think, and this is also, remember, they're trying to, and you know this already, but they're trying to maintain the facade of liquidity and the solvency of banks. So I think it just puts them in that precarious position where, again, the dominoes are falling very slowly.
Well, slowly until they're fast, right? And that's how they capture the most fish in that net, and the most of the public in that net. Liquidity has been an issue, particularly in the treasury market, since 2015. And
Yeah.
so if they can create that distance between their policies and the impact and how it's delivered to the public, that's exactly their goal, because then you don't equate one with the two. It's like Basel III and the end game. I mean, I have felt for quite some time that I'm living in the Stephen King novel where there are all of these things that are going around, and then we're all going to come together in one big cataclysmic event. But all of these dominoes have been falling. And yet, you're seeing, if there really was a lack of liquidity, please tell me how you're seeing stock markets make new highs, right? There isn't really. That's what I'm saying. They want you to think that they're tightening, but they're not really tightening, only in one little area. And you don't know where they're maybe moving that to another area that you just can't see, because what we see is an iceberg, and we see the little teeny tip of that iceberg, but it's all the garbage underneath and all the manipulations underneath that is going to run us over. That is going to be too large once enough risk has been transferred. This is all about risk transfer from the few, so from the central banks, from the governments, from those 1%ers, to the many, to the public. that are shouldering more and more of this entire debt burden on their shoulders. This is just one more thing to weaken that, because they need a big, obvious crisis to shift us into the CBDC system, to shift us into a full surveillance economy. So we always think that they're trying to postpone this. Well, only until enough risk has been transferred. Then you watch. It's going to be way too expensive to bail out, and the public is going to be destitute.
By design.
By design. By design.
Of course.
They know how to do this. They've done it so many times before. They know
Even 2008.
Pardon?
2008.
2008 was a test. 2020 was a test. Everything is a test. And I liken this when my daughters were little. I think Megan was maybe 3 years old, and she behaved badly about something, and I made her go in her room. And I couldn't see her room, right? So what she did was she dipped a toe out, and she got no response. So before I knew it, I was sitting at this table talking on the phone. She came out with a black marker and scribbled on the wall, looking right at me, and then turned around and walked back. And I feel that that's exactly the same thing that central banks and governments use. They do it slowly and test the response. And if they can do it enough times, and then people become complacent. People are complacent. They go, oh, well, that's been happening for so long. Oh, Lynette, you've been talking about the same thing forever. Well, these are not fast processes. These are slow processes, like the frog in the pot of water. So when we're talking about all of these events, just like the shift from LIBOR to SOFR, right? Now people go, well, look at this. They made that shift and nothing happened. But there's a ton of synthetic LIBORs out there that is keeping this propped up. So by the time the public notices it and the deterioration and they take it away, you have a crisis. It's the same thing with these programs that you're talking about. The FOMC meetings, I'll betcha they spend 5 minutes on policy and 55 minutes on how they're going to present it. Right. That's the real important piece, is how all of these things get presented to the public. So this program goes away, nothing happens. People go, see, nothing happened. Well, they just shifted it over here until they're ready to release it. That's all. That's the way they operate.
Yeah, exactly. Just as you were saying, it's always in incremental tests, so that they could get a response, they analyze the response, and then they can plan their next move. It's really a game of chess that they're playing on a high level. But the funny thing is, there are so many journalists out there, Verson and Lanang, that journalists, talking heads that have a huge influence over people, have a lot of mainstream spotlight on them, and they would always say on TV or on articles, oh, the Fed doesn't know what they're doing, these guys don't know what they're doing, they're making a mistake, this is they always say that they don't know what they're doing, they're idiots. The truth is, none of that is true. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because these people are way more intelligent than you think. They have plans for over a decade. They're just going with the plan. And as you said, it's a gradual, incremental process. And that's all by design. But they're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. This is the illusion. They want to give you the perception that they're trying to get it under control, like they don't know what's going on. No, that is so dumb. Come on, people.
And who do they really work for? And it's not just a decade. It's a century.
Yes, exactly.
They knew that this was going to come the moment that they did that first experiment back in 1913. And then in I think it was 27 or 28, when they actually, for the first time ever in history, gave the central bank a perpetual charter. They knew all of this was going to die at some point. No currency, no fiat money currency has ever been able to avoid the extreme abuse of the governments that want to tax and spend and the central bankers that are supporting them. Independent? I don't think so. I mean, that's just garbage. Look at what just happened with NYCB, right? The bank. Who rode in on their white horse and saved them? Steve Mnuchin and Otting, right? So the ex-Treasury Secretary, the ex-Comptroller of the currency, and these are private equity players.
Yeah.
Private equity that went in and bought a bank and have the charter. And the last time they did that was after the 2008 crisis with IndyMac. And they're not about protecting the public, even though they were public servants. They're not about protecting the public. They're about getting their piece of the pie and a much bigger share. And they really don't care who they hurt in the process. I mean, they got the nickname, which I know Steve Mnuchin hates, of the foreclosure king. But their company, after they rebranded it, went in and did a lot of nasty things to the public that is ripe for it because they don't know how to pay attention at this level. And they haven't been trained in what real money is, how to manage their money, how to manage their debt. It's just all in a debt system. It's just all about taking on more and more and more and more and more and more and more debt.
Right.
But there comes a point where you cannot shoulder that debt.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that saying? If I owe you $100,000, I have a problem. If I owe you $1 billion, you have a problem. But since the government and the central bank balance sheet is really the responsibility of the US taxpayer, which people do not understand,
right,
then we have that problem no matter how abusive or how much debt is taken on. We, the public, are the ones that are going to pay that price, and we just aren't paying attention.
But I think real quick, I'm sorry, Vandell. There is a silver lining, to some degree. Some people around the world are waking up. They're starting to see through the lies and the deceit. And the ones who really do see what we see here, it's really just a classic case of us versus them. And, the real truth is this isn't a fight between nations. I think it's a fight between the people, we the people, and the central banks. And for decades, these institutions have wielded all this unchecked power, debasing the currencies, impoverishing millions in the process. But I think it's going to get to a point where obviously something's going to break. Do you see people standing up for their rights again and taking the fight back to the central banks, or do you think they're just going to lay over and let CBDCs roll in?
I think there will be some that will lay over, but I agree with you so much, Versan, that what we are seeing happening is on a global basis, more and more people waking up and then starting to say no, because there are so much more of us than there are of them. And, we were chatting for a minute before we went on air, and I said, really, Australia changed my life. There's no doubt about it. And what I realized there is, and that goes into me even doing my own thing. What I realized there is that we have to develop community. We have to develop community locally because food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community and shelter. These are the things that we need on a local basis to get through this. I think we can all remember what happened in March and April of 2020 when you couldn't get things at the grocery store, right? And that was also a test. 100% was that a test. But for me, that was also a wake-up call, because when people feel hungry and hopeless, they make choices they would not otherwise make. And so there were riots that broke out. And yes, I think it is probable, and this was happening, leading into 2020, that there was a rise in populism, which is back on, and a lot of rioting and a lot of protesting, and recently, people rushing to gold in China, right? In China, believe it or not, China gives me more hope than any other place because those people are so suppressed and so controlled. And what did we see when they had these lockdown policies? You had people coming together and protesting, and they changed their policies because of that. Wow. That look at the rise of all of the unions, whether you agree with them or not, but they're actually people coming together and saying no. And now in China, there's a massive rush to gold. Actually, it's happening in a number of places. So in places that you normally do not see this rise of the worker or rise of the public, we're starting to see that. I think we could see a global revolution, and I see that. And that's why, local community, because things will get very local as the currency collapses and we go into hyperinflation. You got to have that local community. But the global community, because we are going into a new monetary and financial system. And if we can come together on a global basis and we vote with our wallets and our purses, taking money out of their system, then we're going to get to have a voice in what that, at least that's my hope, in what that next system is. And that's really what I realized in, Australia, is that my job is so much bigger than what it was. My job, as much as I can, and I can't certainly do it alone. We have to all come together in community, but I'm seeing we can have that voice. We absolutely can on a global basis to have a more fair system going into this new system, but only if we come together. If we don't, if they allow it just to steamroll over, you better be as self-sufficient and independent as you possibly can be, because otherwise you will lose all freedom, all choice.
Absolutely. And as you said, that's the power of community. The example you saw in China, that's because they were working collectively together to stand up. And that's the thing. You have to set the example. For anybody watching this out there in the world, that's the power of community that Lynette is talking about. And when times get tough, the pandemic in 2020 was really a nothing burger compared to what's coming, I believe. And the reason is because there was really nothing wrong. It was all lies on mainstream media like CNN. And the moment they announced it, that's when people start panicking. That's when you start seeing the supply chain shock, things not in the grocery store, not available when you needed them, even the basic things. Forget toilet paper. You couldn't even get water and basic meat and chicken and things like that. So imagine something greater than that, which obviously these crises continue to get greater and greater if we look at historically, So inevitably, I think that's the outcome that's around the corner. When? Who knows? But it's certainly getting close. But yeah, you're right on that community thing. 100%, Lynette.
Yeah. If I also may, I'm a very big advocate, just like you are, for physical assets in your investment portfolio. So keep telling people to buy some gold, some silver, to prepare for any potential economic challenges. And, gold, I think, is going to hit 5,000 this year, maybe 3,500. Obviously, it's being suppressed. And I've told people it's because we have a printing press still. You take that out of the equation all of a sudden, and these things go to astronomical prices. And I think that's exactly what Basel III regulations is all about. Vandell and I have actually went through the Basel III regulations from the BIS, and it says that central banks have to have an adequate amount of gold reserves. And I think that's what they're buying all the gold for.
You're looking at it.
Right. But what's interesting is, obviously, we talked about this a little bit before, is that this is going into a digital world eventually. And we have to look, I guess, at the counterpart for that representation of the physical gold for central banks. And obviously, that's why Vandell and I we talk a lot about XRP because it is a liquidity provision tool, and we see the central banks positioning themselves with all that stuff. I know your taste on Bitcoin. You're not too crazy about Bitcoin, right? Can you give us your perspective on all that? I know you said Wall Street adopted it. Obviously, we've seen.
Wall Street has adopted it,
Right.
have they not?
What a perfect way to control it.
Well, you said it before that happened too.
But of course, I said it way before that happened because I've been studying currency life cycles since 1987, and there are repeatable patterns. And here's one of them. In order to make the transition and get people to just comply and not realize what's happening, they have to keep things as normal looking as possible. So no, I never felt, especially after reading the 1996 NSA white paper on how to make a mint or create a mint, where they were talking about the cryptocurrencies, I just never thought that it was a coincidence that Bitcoin, and I've been watching it since it was $7 a token, right? So that came out in January of 2009, and quantitative easing came out in March of 2009. It's also not a big shocker that it had the first run. Now it's having the second run, because when things run up, it gathers eyes, right? It becomes more normal. Having it adopted into the system is more normal. But I also pay attention to the Bank for International Settlements money flower,
right?
Because that really tells you what the central bankers, they're the central bankers, what the central banks really think of digital currencies. And if you go on and you look at it, there is a small space that is out of the central bank purview. All the other cryptocurrencies are within their realm, and certainly the CBDCs on both a wholesale and a retail level. There is a larger area for commodity money, which is, gold and silver. Okay. Those are the only areas that are peer-to-peer and outside the central bank's ability to completely control. So which coins actually fit inside of that money flower? I don't know. That's why I don't have cryptocurrencies, because I don't know, just like I'm not in the stock market, because I don't know who's going to survive this mess. But having studied it, there is no such thing as a soft landing.
Yeah.
These transitions, this is going to be a very, very hard landing. And one of the things that definitely has me concerned is the vulnerability of the grid.
Me too.
You're right. And I just want to make a note. Speaking of soft landing, for anybody out there, have you ever seen an airplane run out of gasoline? Doesn't land soft, But carry on, Lynette.
No, that is such a great analogy, because that's what we're really looking at here. We're looking at this giant, there is no more gas left. There is officially no more purchasing power left in the currency. And all of those levels of confidence required to keep this machine running, bank to bank, central bank to central bank, markets to central bank, and then the public to the central bank and the monetary system. That last layer of confidence, that last little bit of gas in the gas tank, is the only thing that's left. And the way, I'm putting my neck on the line here, and maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong. Time is going to tell. But I've been paying attention for many, 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 many years on the monetary velocity. In other words, how frequently money changes hands. And that has been in falling off a cliff, really. It peaked in, I think, 97. It peaked in 97, and it's been falling off a cliff up until relatively recently, where now we've got a pervasive spike. So what that tells me is, just like in hyperinflation, when you become aware of how quickly prices are changing, as soon as you get money in your hands, you want to get it out of your hands. You want to buy anything that will hold its purchasing power value more than this stuff that they can just debase at their will, at whatever they feel like doing. And so that's why I'm sitting here telling everybody today that I do personally believe we are in the very early stages of the hyperinflation that we're all going to experience.
Yep.
And then when you see Dollar Tree, which is, I think there was supposed to be something, nothing, I haven't never been in one, but like nothing over a buck, which is called Dollar Tree, closing a whole bunch of stores because their low-end consumer can't even buy what they could buy for a buck, and now putting in higher prices going up to $7 because they're trying to attract a wealthier client. I mean, that is really telling because it's the consumers that are now left supporting this whole mess.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I make 2 points real quick, Vandell?
Please.
Sorry. So first thing, you did say this last time, hyperinflation, we are in the early stages of it. And I absolutely believe that. Also, the information came out yesterday from the Federal Reserve. Numbers were artificially inflated, but the inflation does not come down ever. It never does. Another thing I do want to point out is, you mentioned something about, well, like a false flag event, the grid going down. And I think really that's one of my biggest concerns beyond anything. And I've done everything I could to prepare, but it is very clear that something is brewing. And the reason I say this is it's their MO. And when everything fails, this is something Gerard Salente says, they take us to war. And if you follow their playbook, this is exactly what they do. It's too familiar. Problem, reaction, solution. Crisis is manufactured to serve as a specific agenda. And we can look right now, I guess, at the current state of the borders. And that obviously is providing an opportunity for a staged false flag attack within America to justify, for instance, like 9/11, to justify another unconstitutional war overseas. It's really crazy. It's really crazy.
And we're fighting wars on multiple fronts. And the funny thing is, it's not really funny, but the interesting thing about it is that a physical war isn't really necessary. And there are people that know a whole lot more about this than I do, are talking about that World War III has already begun, but it's begun in cyberspace.
Yep. AI.
Well,
so, why do they need a physical war with people dying? Because that's what the public can see. The public doesn't see the war that's happening beneath the surface.
Right. And that's the information war too. I mean, it's doing more damage than anything right now. If you look around, you could see it in the people's behavior, whatnot.
Yeah, but go ahead, Lynette.
No, go ahead. I'll keep my
Well,
thought.
yeah, cyber war. Instead of, dropping nuclear warheads and bombs and putting all your soldiers at risk, destroying the whole place, all you got to do is shut down their grid. That will do enough damage to disrupt a whole economy.
Exactly.
Or worse.
Exactly. It will. And I mean, we have evidence of that over and over and over again in all of these hacks. And yet what they want is to digitize and tokenize, which I'm actually looking at, because yes, we are going digital, and like everything, there's good and there's bad about it. So we need to make sure that we are personally appropriately diversified so that no matter what happens, you can take care of yourself and your family and your community. And again, going back to, you should always have a foundation of physical gold in your possession, because that's the only financial asset. And these are not my words. These are the Bank for International Settlements words. Gold is the only financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. Even in the digital age, if you don't hold it, you really don't own it. And just because your perception is that you own something, you've got to read that fine print, because it's easy enough to look, if the grid goes down, or if the government decides to push a button. I mean, we think that the internet is open and available. Well, look, it's not really true. The Chinese government controls their internet. So doesn't that, if they can do it, why can't our government do it? How do we know our government isn't already doing it? Because you can go on sites that you're used to. You just have to be properly diversified no matter what choice you make. You need to be properly diversified so that no matter what happens, you retain your freedoms and your choices and your family and you're okay.
Yeah, you're right.
I was saying I have a lot of my wealth in physical gold and silver. I've been doing
Mhm.
that for a long time before I got into crypto or blockchain. So,
Right. Well,
Mhm.
it's a similar mindset, right? What are we trying to do? We're trying to go outside of the system that we don't like and we don't approve of, right?
de-dollarize.
It's the same kind of mindset, but just imagine if Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies had not come out, where do you think people would be running to?
Yeah, it
Yep.
stole a lot of the wealth that would have went into gold and precious metals, and that went into crypto and digital assets, particularly Bitcoin, the most well-known one that came out right after the 2008 housing crisis, funny enough. But yeah,
Yeah, that's, I
you're
mean,
absolutely
interesting.
Yeah.
but you're right, Lynette, on preparing and diversification. Um, because the thing is, for anybody watching out there, you don't need to compare yourself to all these super high quality preppers out there. The key is to gradually get yourself in a better position. Maybe a little silver here and there, a little bit of gold, uh, probably some land, learn how to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, through incremental steps, and have small achievable goals, and then have a larger goal that you're trying to reach. But the key is take action and actually get there rather than sitting on the sidelines and just listening or watching. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You do have to do it, but I started this project after 2008 because I 100% knew that the system died then. I mean, it just did. And so I was not really a gardener or certainly a farmer or anything like that. I'd been accumulating gold and silver, but I did not think I would see this in my lifetime. And there it was. So I've had this luxury of all of this time to get prepared, learn those skill sets, and build my community because, there's only so many hours in a day anyway.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the importance of local community. And I don't think we have time to do it, frankly. I mean, it's not a horrible idea to do it incrementally, but we don't have the time. I had the time to do it, and I feel like I still would like more time. So I'm not in a rush for things to collapse at all, or for it to become, I shouldn't say that. I'm not in a rush for it to become apparent to the public at
Yeah.
all, right? Because when that happens, it's too late to do anything. But that comes back to local community, doesn't it? Because if you don't know how to garden, I mean, I bought this property in 2010 and have been working on it ever since then. Do we have 13 years?
Oh,
Maybe, but I don't.
probably we'll see, right?
Yeah, we're going
As
to
long as
see,
they fabricate this.
right.
Well,
We need to stay local. You need to go to your farmers markets, meet the farmers that are growing your food, creating your food, volunteer to go out and work on their farm. You'll probably walk home with some goodies, but more importantly, you'll have that relationship. Because look around, food becomes the single biggest issue. Now, you can barter something real that has, huge, it's used in everything, single sector of the global economy. So there's always a market for silver and physical gold. And I like silver for my tool of barter. Having said that, if you have a relationship with those farmers and it boils down to a stranger versus you needing food, who do you think is going to get it?
Right.
If you're part of my community, well, I have the gold and silver. So yes, you want to have as much as you can possibly have. But
Barterability.
Right, but if you're part of my community and we need a new equipment or we need something, I'm going to get that for us. So that's why the local community is critical and you need to come together and create that. And so many people say, I don't know where to start. Well, there are meetups, right, where you find like-minded people, but a farmer's market is a great place to start. Go and start
Definitely.
those relationships and make that happen, because we don't have, I can't tell you that it'll be Tuesday morning at 8:35, but to be honest with you, it will surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
In other words, it's really right around the corner. I think they've been kicking the can down the road for too long. So at this point, you just never know. It could happen
Right.
in
I
a few
may.
months, it could happen in a year or two, or tomorrow. So
Well, there's also they have the presidential cycle, presidential selection
selection, yes.
reality show. I know that is coupled with the Bitcoin halving. You know, every 4 years they have a presidential cycle. We got the Bitcoin halving. We have debt restructuring. So, you know, it's very interesting that there's such a big disconnect between what the markets are supposed to be doing and what they are doing as far as the narrative. And, you know, it's hard to disseminate also which direction we need to go, but that's why diversification really is your greatest shield in all this economic uncertainty. There is one statement I wanted to make on Bitcoin, Vandell. This is important. And, you know, a lot of people really don't understand the mechanism behind Bitcoin. They think it's a store of value when it's really not. But Lynette, maybe you did not know this, is that Tether. Are you familiar with Tether? It's a stable coin, USDT. So
Right.
it plays the role of a bad bank for Bitcoin. And those who have done their research into Bitcoin and Tether, they understand that Tether's mission is to really stabilize the illusion of perceived value along 90% of all the other cryptos that are forked onto the Ethereum and Bitcoin blockchain as well. And we also found out that the US bond market was being propped up by stablecoin, Tether. So it's just essentially another fiat currency. So it's just keeping the price of Bitcoin really high, but it's all fake. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
That
an
could be
illusion.
coming down too. Yeah.
An illusion to create demand.
Yes.
I mean,
While they're
that's
buying
it.
the gold.
People
While they're buying the
comfortable with
gold.
it.
Yeah. Now the thing is, though, there's still opportunity there. I'm not saying you can't make money in it if you get in at the right time and get out at the right time, but it's likely not going to change your life at all.
No.
Especially with given the high price it's at currently. Sure. Based on our analysis, it's going to go much higher in this year going into 2025, but I think it would be short-lived and we could see a huge correction or crash coming right after that, the rug pull.
Sure.
Now, the thing is, for investments, we know this for a fact, as currency debasement takes place, asset prices go up. Silver, gold, stocks, crypto. Yeah. So
I mean, in the digital world, you made a statement earlier that the markets aren't doing their job, right? Because the markets are supposed to reflect a free market, but we're not in a free market.
you're right.
We're completely and totally manipulated market. And the other point that I really want to make is look at Zimbabwe, right? You can be a trillionaire in Zimbabwe and not be able to buy 3 eggs. So we get blinded by numbers. It's nominal confusion. We get blinded by numbers, but it doesn't matter how many that you have. You can create as much as you want. It's not, oh, all right, I'm a trillionaire, all these $1 trillion companies. Is it really that these things are worth that much, or that this is worth so little?
You're right. You're right. And what we try to teach people is you can use these crypto markets as a tool to make money, but the key is to get out and move that into something of true stable value. And that's
Like
why
gold.
we love gold and silver so much. Real estate, of course, but now is not the time for that. It's in a bubble as well. but gold and silver. So the idea is to profit, make money, have an exit strategy, because the thing is right now, the currency debasement is happening so rapidly, like you were saying. We're at the beginning stages of hyperinflation, the early stages. I mean, I'm seeing all over the internet, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, social media, where people, average people, are complaining online about the cost of living, how they can barely make it, the cost of their grocery bags, their rent. So it's already happening in this real world, and people are being outspoken about it. It's starting to trend, and it's interesting because I think they're trying to ban TikTok in the United States just the other day. And it's funny because I see TikTok has pros and cons. The cons are it makes you waste your time watching stupid cat videos and dancing and all that stuff, wasting your time, just consuming you. But the other part of it is it's like a method for sourcing and seeing what's going on in the world, information. And it's funny because they're banning it right now, right around the time when, people are really starting to wake up and things are escalating.
Yeah,
Well, this means the financial reset is not far away, and this is
exactly right.
it's gradual, but it is long overdue. And maybe the last thing we can talk about is what's happening in the Middle East. And, the BRICS alliance has never been stronger, and they have partnerships all around the world. Iran, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is not really playing their hand yet, but they're involved. China, Russia, that's most of the world's population. And I think they're just shooken up about the system, and they want this level playing field. And that's really what the BRICS is. It's not really a currency. It's an ideology of getting that level playing field with a gold-backed settlement mechanism using blockchain technology to settle outside the confines of the US dollar.
Yes, exactly. That it is so that they can trade and avoid it. I mean, why wouldn't you? We've abused it forever.
Yes, and we
It
hurt the
didn't
whole
just
world.
start.
Yeah. And I just wanted to throw something out.
The most important member of the BRICS is Saudi Arabia, because that's why the US even retained its position as the world reserve currency. So the fact that they have shifted and are selling their oil in other currencies. Up until this point, you had to use dollars, and that created that false market, that manipulated market for dollars, but that's changed. Everything has changed. You got to get to safety, and real safety, true safety. I've been in these markets on some level, really my entire life. And I know I was groomed for this moment in time. And I'm telling you, it is time to get to safety. I'm not a speculator. I'm not a trader. I am a technician. So if I really wanted to focus on that, I certainly know how to do it on a long-term basis as well as a short-term basis. But that's not who I am. I definitely understand the monetary system, and that's the foundation. And everything has a life cycle, and we're at the end of it. So get yourself into a position to transition into the new thing. Get yourself into a position to have a voice in what that new monetary system actually looks like. What a concept that we, the people, we, the individual public, could actually have that impact. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm telling you right now, I'm going to die trying.
I don't think you're wrong.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't think you're wrong either. Yes. We've been on point. This is again why we love talking to you. You really see through everything. And this is, it's very hard to find people with that really see exactly what you're talking about here, the macro picture.
It is, isn't it? It's
very challenging.
Really, I talk to a lot of really brilliant people that I have so much respect for their work and all of that. And then when I ask them, well, what about the currency life cycle issue?
They don't get it.
What about this currency? What about global currencies having virtually no purchasing power? That's what negative rates are about. They got to attack your principal. that's where they're headed with the CBDCs. That's their statement. There's no, negative rates are a choice. There's no limitations on how low we can push rates, which actually means we can erode your principal. We've gotten all your purchasing power. That's done. Now we got to take all your principal. We got to take all of your wealth. You will have nothing, but I'm pretty sure you won't be happy.
Yeah. Well, as they lower rates this year, which I think they're going to do very soon,
So,
that's when people are going to start getting rid of bonds and they're going to start moving into different asset classes for better returns. I think crypto will be one of them. I think gold and silver are going to continue to rise this year, especially gold.
well, we had a breakout, but that's a technical breakout.
Yeah, exactly.
Even at these levels, it does not reflect its true fundamental value. We won't
Absolutely.
see that until the overnight revaluations, and then we'll see the start of that.
And that's coming. There will be a revaluation. Yes.
100%, 100%. Not one
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah. Rasan, did you have any other questions for Lynette?
My God, we could talk for hours. I know we can. But
Yes, we can.
we will certainly pick up the conversation. I think we've covered enough. And, I'm just glad people out there are really starting to wake up and, we'll go from there.
Well, any last words, Lynette, before we all sign off here for the viewers?
I think the most important message is, again, to come together in community, but stop waiting. So many people think that they're going to know like the second before. Even if you did, you would not have the time to get into position. So, really, to Vandell's point earlier, you start to accumulate. You do what you can. So yes, you need to be accumulating gold and silver and also food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Get to the farmer's market. Get to know those people that are local to you that can grow food for you if you're not a gardener. I mean, bazillion-dollar tomatoes are on my property, but I had the luxury of time. We do not have that luxury anymore. So no more procrastinating, no more thinking, I can do it tomorrow. Do it today and come help us build our YouTube channel.
Yes. Lynette has a new YouTube channel. All the information will be in the description below. So go ahead and follow her, support her mission, and continue learning from her because she's always bringing excellent insight and great value to the table. And the problem is we don't have enough of that in this world. So we certainly need more of that and more of you. So thank you, Lynette.
Thank you guys very much for having me.
Always. We'll talk soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Bye.